Hey guys. This is part 12 of What If Naruto is hiding her identity, and secretly a girl. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 62, A Quiet Night. Naruto had somehow tangled herself in the sheet. It tightly wrapped around her otherwise naked form like a white, knotted dress that showed hints of her tan skin through its somewhat see-through material. As she laid on her stomach, she played with her new pendant, something that made Shikamaru smile. He ran his fingers up and down Naruto's bare back, enjoying the shivers that followed. "Can we just stay here until I have to leave?" Naruto sighed contently. "Is everything you need to pack here?" After a thought, Naruto dropped her head. "No. Most of it is at the estate." When do you have to leave exactly?" "Early Tuesday morning." "So you actually only have tomorrow before you leave?" Shikamaru sighed against Naruto's shoulder before kissing it. "What a drag." Naruto chuckled at his whine. "Pretty much. I know I have to go, and I want to be able to fight again since I currently can't even keep my chakra out to sense people. But at the same time, I don't want to go. What about if the Akatsuki come looking for me again? I can't let the village suffer like that." Shikamaru kissed her, silencing her rambling. "They won't attack the village. They don't know about the seal weakening, so they'll be too worried about you defeating more of their members. The next conflict will be one we meet. Just be careful when you're with the man with the 8 tails. The Akatsuki is after both of you, so putting you together, whilst necessary, runs risks." "I know. I'm fairly certain that old granny thought about that, but even with the best plans, shit can go wrong. Still, I wish I didn't have to go. Even with everything that's happened the last couple of months, it's still been some of the best months I've ever had. All my hard work with the village has shown to be worthwhile, and I've been able to be who I am without fear. Then there's being able to be with you, Ino, Uncle Inoichi, and Aunt Momiji. It's made all the crap that's happened with me easier. I don't want to leave. I want to stay here and plug my ears and sing loudly off-key whenever someone brings up leaving." Shikamaru chuckled, the deep sound resonating through his chest. "I can't say I'm not highly tempted to do the same, but how about we stay here until tomorrow afternoon? It'll just be the two of us." He trailed kisses over her shoulder, his fingers running up and down her spine. I like that idea. The only problem is that Ino will be mad she wasn't given a heads up about your leaving in time to move your birthday party to tomorrow. I'm glad she can't. I know she's trying to be nice, but honestly I've had to come to terms with a lot of things and am exhausted. I would have to put on a smile the whole time when I'll be uncomfortable and confused. I don't really know how birthday parties are meant to work, having only seen yours, and throwing me straight into it will just makes me realize how much I've missed out on." Naruto gave him a half smile. "I'm grateful, but I'm just not ready. I'm not giving the necklace back though, so don't even think about it." She cracked a grin. Putting a hand on her waist, he pulled her closer, enjoying the heat that radiated off her body. "Wouldn't think of it. How about next year we lock ourselves up in this apartment, and just spend the day together? Clothing is optional." Naruto snorted before kissing him. "Sounds like a plan. If our friends come over to see you, you can choose whether or not we let them in. Though clothing will then become mandatory. But I must warn you, if you wear that blue dress we may have to disappear for lengths at a time or kick our friends out after a few minutes." He smiled when Naruto laughed, her skin pinking. "I may actually like that birthday," the blonde admitted before lightly brushing her lips against his. He groaned when she pulled back. "Tease." He only received a bark of laughter in reply. "So you've never had any celebration on your birthday? Wouldn't Uncle Inoichi and Aunt Momiji have tried to celebrate with you?" "Well, I distanced myself from them early on to protect them. Iruka-sensei lost his parents the day I was born to the creature inside me, so he never felt I was safe to be with him on the anniversary of that moment. I don't think he ever wanted to look at me and see the 9 tails. I'm glad he made that choice, even if I didn't know about it until older. But I have sort of celebrated once. When Shikamaru looked at her with curiosity, she explained. Sasuke brought over a cake that he had made, but he had mixed up the sugar and the salt so it wasn't edible. He went and bought me dinner and dessert and brought it back to my place for me. He told me that the cake was an Uchiha tradition, but some of the others in the village did it too. It wasn't until Choji was talking about birthdays to Sai and I, and was surprised at our confusion, that I realized Sasuke had lied to me. He hadn't wanted me to know I had missed out. Shikamaru stared at Naruto before blinking. I had no idea that Sasuke could be so kind. He was always so stoic and cold at school. That's the type of guy he was to everyone, but when it was just us hanging out, he was different. He had the weirdest sense of humor too. Coming from you, that means a lot, he teased. Shut up. He was really bad. We once saw a dog running towards some long grass. The moment he reached it, he threw himself on his back and started rolling around, making weird noises like he was trying to talk. Sasuke thought it was so funny he fell to the ground laughing. He was crying, he was laughing that hard. I'm not kidding. He did that sort of thing all the time when it was just the two of us, or would go along with whatever weird plan I thought up, and encourage me to be worse. We once filled the space above the tiles in the Hokage's office with confetti and showered the old man during a meeting. What's worse is that it was raining outside, so everyone in the meeting was wet, and the confetti stuck to them. Naruto gave a laugh at the memories. You know, I can understand why you want that Sasuke back. Although I've respected the fact that you want him back, I didn't actually get why. But if that's the Sasuke you knew, I can get it. You and he were like me and Choji, and I would do anything to get him back if someone manipulated him into leaving, or if he was as lost as Sasuke. He ran his fingers through her hair. I told you I'd help you get him back in any way I can, and I will. Once the seal is dealt with, we can sit down and come up with some ideas. I know, though, that I can hold my own in a fight between you two. I've talked to Sai and Captain Yamato. I've read the reports on Sasuke's attack of the Hokage's summit. Honestly, whenever I think about you two going head-on, I picture two godly forces slugging it out. That thought just makes me realize how meekly mortal I am. Naruto gave him a soft smile as she moved closer, holding the sheet against her chest. She ran her hands up his chest. I don't see you as a meek mortal. She kissed his lips. You're a genius. She kissed him again, caring, another kiss, patient, another kiss, sweet, another kiss, funny, another, gentle, another, very handsome. Shikamaru buried his fingers in her hair, stopping her from pulling back from the kiss. He smirked at her moan of surprise. Lovingly hugging Naruto closer, he ran his free hand over her bare back, relishing in the feel of her soft skin under his calloused palms. There was no satin or silk in the world he would find more enjoyable than the feel of Naruto's skin that laid exposed for his wondering fingers. The fact that he could feel every shiver and hot flush that went through her body was also a plus. Oh, crap. Sorry. The two jumped at the unexpected voice. Snapping his head towards the direction of the door, he found Captain Yamato with his back to them, staring at the corner of the ceiling. He instantly pulled the blanket up further, trying to hide his entire form underneath. Captain Yamato, how'd you get in here? Naruto asked with a frown. The brunette awkwardly waved his hand over his shoulder. I had a key from making furniture for this place. When you didn't answer the door, I got a little worried. Alright, but why did you come here in the first place? Shikamaru was surprised that Naruto was calmly holding a conversation with her captain whilst lying naked in bed with her equally undressed boyfriend. Even if the blankets were hiding everything. It took him a moment to remember that Naruto had no shame when it came to her body. Granted, he didn't think she had a reason to be ashamed with what he classed as a phenomenal figure, but it was still what he classed as an embarrassing situation. He could feel his face heating up the longer the scene played out. I thought you might want help packing for the mission, Captain Yamato explained, his voice strained. Obviously my timing is bad. Was it the nudity that gave it away? Naruto sniggered. Naruto! Both men yelped. Fine, I'll put you both out of your miseries. I don't need help packing. I'm going to do it tomorrow when I go back to the estate. Captain Yamato turned towards them, his gaze catching Shikamaru's for a moment before he stared intently at the ceiling again. So you two are going to stay here, only, until you go back to the estate. Shikamaru bit back his noise of understanding. He had been warned by his father that Naruto would have to be closely guarded leading up to her leaving so that no one let slip about the war that everyone was starting to massively prepare for. They were at the moment in the plan where they had to watch all of Naruto's interactions to anyone other than those who were allowed to know where Naruto was going and the real reason why. His father had made it clear that when Naruto wasn't at the estate she would have to be with Shikamaru, Captain Yamato, Iruka-sensei, or Kakashi-sensei. Obviously Captain Yamato hadn't thought that Shikamaru was with Naruto in the new apartment. Our plan was to go back tomorrow afternoon and maybe have a going-away dinner with my family, Shikamaru explained, making it clear that he would be with Naruto until the moment she left, which should have been a given to everyone. Oh good. Well, I'll just leave then. You two can go back to what you were doing. I mean, not that I'm saying you shouldn't. You're allowed to do whatever you want. I mean, it's none of my business, but I'm not going to tell you what to do, especially if it's that. Not that I'm a prude. Captain Yamato! Naruto yelled, cutting through the man's senseless ramblings. Feel free to run. We won't be offended. Thank you, the ex-umbu squeaked before turning and rushing out of the room. They heard the front door snap shut, making them both chuckle. And your streak of making your superiors awkward continues, Shikamaru laughed. You should have seen him at the hot springs when I walked out. He made a sound like a dying animal and dunked himself into the water so he couldn't see me. He forgot that boiling water and eyes don't mix though and jumped back up screaming and spluttering. It was pretty funny. That poor man. Shikamaru shook his head, his face slowly returning to normal color. Maybe we should have gotten him to leave his keys so we didn't have to worry about him barging in again. Naruto sniggered. I think he's too scared to do that again. Though I'm glad it was him and not Kakashi-sensei. Or imagine if it was Iruka-sensei. Shikamaru instantly blushed at the thought of that scenario. If that ever happens, I'd engulf myself in shadows. Is that possible? We'd definitely find out. The blonde laughed, curling into his side. As long as you hide me too. Oh, have we actually found something that would make even Naruto Uzumaki blush? Shikamaru loomed over her, grinning gleefully. The only way you'll find out is to also put yourself in that situation, Naruto threatened with a pout. Damn. Guess we'll have to find something else that embarrasses you. What about if I wrote I love you, Naruto across the Hokage faces? Wouldn't that just embarrass you? No. Shikamaru shook his head, noticing the slight blush to the woman's face. Is that something you'd like, Naruto? You don't have to try and win me, Shikamaru. Doesn't mean I'm going to stop trying. You're worth it. Once again Naruto gave me that look that he couldn't quite interpret. He had never seen such an expression from Naruto. So are you though. It wasn't until 3 in the afternoon the next day that they reluctantly left the apartment. They had postponed leaving with little tasks like doing the dishes left over after breakfast and lunch, and exploring the new apartment. They would have waited longer, but Naruto had to pack. As she threw clothing into a backpack, Shikamaru sat on the bed writing on various pieces of paper and stuffing them into envelopes. His parents had asked where they had been since the day before. Naruto started telling them all about the new apartment, and how she had wanted a day to relax before she had to leave. Do you think there will be a place to wash clothing, or should I pack enough clothing for a long stay? Naruto asked, looking at the clothing she clumsily folded and shoved in the bag. I still don't have a lot of outfits, so I could pack all the clothing I can train in, but then I'll still have the issue of cleaning the clothing. I'm sure they will have something if you're meant to train there for as long as it takes, Shikamaru assured before throwing a shirt at Naruto. That's the only one of my shirts you're getting. You say that, Naruto teased, stuffing the shirt into her backpack. What are you doing anyway? Writing. The woman huffed before crawling onto the bed and trying to peek at the words. When Shikamaru stopped her from seeing it, Naruto instead kissed him. He started to return the kiss only for Naruto to jump back with a triumphant grin, waving the piece of paper in the air. As Shikamaru gave her a mocking frown, she sat back and looked at the 4 words. What is this? Do all the envelopes have this in it? Yes. Why so many? So you can read one every day. There's enough to last you a month. And if I'm gone for longer than a month? Naruto taunted, flashing the letter at him so he could see the words I love you, Naruto written in his handwriting. Then start again from the start. Shikamaru grinned, snatching the paper back and putting it in an envelope to finish off the pile. This way you can remind yourself that my feelings haven't changed, no matter how long you have to be gone for. Naruto moved closer. That's really sweet. She slid her arms over his shoulders, kissing him. You know that you're too good for me, right? Shikamaru shrugged. If you say so. Just don't go telling everyone that. I like to encourage the opinion that I'm cold and logical. Who actually thinks that about you? Laughed the blonde. Most people really. Anyone I don't really know well, those who mainly know me from missions. I like it though, it discourages people from putting their noses into my life. But you've never been cold to me, even before we were friends. He shrugged again. I've always liked you, even when I just thought you were a funny kid. Well, I'll keep your secret. Naruto smiled, kissing him again before grabbing the stack of envelopes to put them in her bag. As she did so, the bedroom door flew open. Hey, you two, Uncle Inoichi practically cheered. Whether he honestly thought he was succeeding in masking his true intentions when barging in the room was unclear. Either way, Naruto and Shikamaru shared a discreet eye roll before looking at the man. How's it going, Uncle Inoichi? Naruto asked, barely repressing the snicker that Shikamaru could hear. I was just wondering if you needed help packing, Uncle Inoichi said whilst he cast his eyes over the bedroom Naruto had been sharing with Ino. He seemed relieved to see that Shikamaru was sitting on the bed whilst Naruto was on the floor in front of her bag. No thanks, I'm finished. Naruto smiled, zipping up her backpack. Oh, well, do you want to come out into the living room, so that everyone can spend time with you before you leave, suggested Uncle Inoichi. Subtle, Shikamaru sniggered. He got off Naruto's bed, cleaning up the writing utensils. After that he held his hand out to Naruto, pulling her to her feet. He kept hold of her hand as they followed the blonde man into the lounge room. Once Inoichi was certain the two teens wouldn't retreat to the bedroom, he wandered off into the kitchen. Ino, Ryota, Hinata, Eri, and Eiji were sitting around the coffee table. Eiji and Ino were discussing the medical treatment Ino was giving Aunt Momiji. The older woman had become stronger, if only slowly. The treatments had taken a step forward when Sai had dug up the scroll containing the jutsu that had been used. Naruto had commented to Shikamaru that it had taken Sai a week straight to find it. Eri was happily laughing at her brother, as he tried to hold a conversation with Hinata, who was too busy blushing and stammering to converse. Although Shikamaru knew his cousin well, he couldn't tell if Ryota's attentions towards Hinata were out of amusement at her actions or because he had genuine feelings for the woman. Shikamaru didn't worry though, he knew his cousin would never push the joke far enough to hurt Hinata, since he clearly saw her as a friend at the least. He and Naruto sat down on one of the couches. Instead of joining into the conversations, Naruto leant into Shikamaru, lazily playing with her necklace as she relaxed against him. With a chuckle he started running his fingers through her hair after pulling the elastic out. When she pouted he just smirked at her, putting her elastic on his wrist so it mirrored his that she still wore. Instead of trying to get it back, she nipped playfully at his arm before going back to lounging against him. Naruto, Hinata started, clearly just noticing the blonde and feeling relieved at a distraction. I like your necklace. Where did you get it? Shikamaru gave it to me. Naruto stopped playing with the pendant so that Hinata could get a better look at it. It was meant to be a birthday present, then Nara explained as he wrapped his arms around Naruto's waist. Did you forget to hide it, cuz? Ryota asked with a laugh. He's not you. You always leave people's birthday presents out in the open. You always ruin the surprise for me, Eri teased. At least I've never forgotten your birthday. Where's my praise for being a great brother? We share the same birthday. Eri laughed as she hit Ryota in the face with a pillow. When I was your age we didn't hit our siblings with pillows, Ryota huffed. What? 7 minutes ago. Exactly. Shikamaru snorted at his cousin's behavior before Ino reminded him of the fact they hadn't told everyone something. Looks like you'll have to buy Naruto another gift to give her on her birthday. Naruto and he shared a look before Naruto cleared her throat. Nah, he doesn't need to do that. Of course he does. Your boyfriend should give you a gift on your first real birthday, Eri stated, only to pull an uncomfortable face. I hope you don't mind me bringing up the fact of your, lack of birthdays? Not at all. And I haven't had a chance to tell you, but I'm leaving on a mission tomorrow, and I most likely won't be back before my birthday. What? No! Gasped. And if Naruto does get back within the 2 weeks, we won't be holding a party for her birthday, Shikamaru instructed, watching Ino frown in confusion. Naruto wants a quiet birthday after everything that's happened. I guess the birthday girl should get what the birthday girl wants, Eiji reasoned with a shrug. I hope the mission isn't dangerous. It has its risks, but it'll be worth it. Naruto shrugged, though Shikamaru could hear the slightest tremor in her voice. It was wise, though, that she didn't explain that the risk was death and the Nine Tails running rampant. Although Shikamaru did have fear buried deep in his stomach, he knew that he had nothing to worry about. Naruto had taken some of the most close-minded, arrogant, and aggressive people in the village and made them some of her biggest supporters. One giant fox with an anger management issue would be no trouble for her. When do you leave? Eri asked, running her hand over her husband's back to remove the tension he was feeling. Tomorrow morning, Naruto sighed, but in the meantime I'm here with you guys. Mom is cooking Naruto a goodbye dinner tonight, so that's something. He was glad that the group didn't insist on fanfare for Naruto's last dinner. He could tell that Naruto just wanted to be left alone. Whenever the others were distracted, Shikamaru noticed that Naruto would let her smile slip just a little and she would look nervous, or even frightened. Her father, the fourth Hokage, had put the Nine Tails in her, with a specially designed seal because, even before meeting her, he had known that she could do what the previous Jinchurikis had perhaps never even been able to comprehend. There was no denying, though, that there were dangers. To pretend that there wasn't would to be an idiot. And Naruto was no idiot. Hinata said goodbye to them all shortly before Yoshino and Aunt Momiji announced that dinner was ready. Aunt Momiji asked Naruto about her new apartment as they ate. Ryota, who sat beside him, had bumped his fist against Shikamaru's knee, in the only form of silent support he could give. Shikamaru was thankful for it, even if he didn't really need it anymore. He knew that Naruto's apartment was a haven for both of them, not just the blonde. He couldn't exactly announce that to his cousin, though. Ryota would want to know what he meant by that, and what Naruto had done to make him feel that way. If his cousin was to ask those questions, Shikamaru would not be able to hold back his blush. A quiet dinner seemed to be exactly what Naruto needed, especially when it was followed up with her lying her head on Shikamaru's lap as he read a book and ran his fingers through her hair. Any fear or tension she had held throughout the day melted away under his fingers. She gave a soft whine when he moved his hand away from her head. When that didn't make him start again, she peeked one eye open. You're falling asleep. You should go to bed. Only if you come with me, she whispered back. She gave him a look that made his insides flip and his heart to race. Looking around, he noticed that the only other person awake was Ino. Noticing this, Naruto stood up, taking his hand and pulling him off the couch. We're going to head to bed, Naruto told Ino, making the other blonde look up from her notes. Good night. And Naruto, if I don't see you before you leave, good luck on your mission, and I'll see you when you get back. Naruto nodded before the two said goodnight to Ino. Shikamaru let Naruto lead him by the hand into their bedroom, but the moment the door was closed he pulled her to him, kissing her deeply. He held her close as thoughts he desperately wanted to voice washed through his mind. Don't go. Stay with me. Stay hidden. Please be here when I come back from this war. Please don't find out about the war. Don't go. Knowing he couldn't actually say any of that, he let the words be lost between their lips. Part of him wished that Naruto could tell what he wanted to say, but he knew that she couldn't do as he asked. She had to leave him, and eventually, she would find out about the war, and when she did, she would rush in to help anyone she could. He just hoped that when that time came that they had dwindled the enemy's numbers. But that was something he could leave until tomorrow to worry about. At that moment he just wanted to focus on Naruto. The touch of her lips, the feel of her skin under his fingertips, and the feeling of safety they had that would vanish completely in the next couple of days. The soft moan that Naruto gave into his mouth certainly helped with redirecting his attention. He woke up before Naruto, giving him the opportunity to kiss her awake. When she opened her eyes, she gave him a soft smile as she stretched. She sighed when she saw the clock, though. "I have to meet Captain Yamato at the East Gate in an hour," she lamented. "I hate that it's so soon," Shikamaru agreed. With clear reluctance, Naruto got up and darted from the room to have a shower. It seemed only moments later Shikamaru was walking Naruto to the gate to meet the rest of the team that was journeying with the blonde. Captain Yamato was talking to another man who Shikamaru assumed was from the Sealing Corp. The two stopped just out of earshot of the older men before Shikamaru pulled Naruto close. "Try to be safe, cause I'm going to be pissed if you don't come back to me. I've grown kind of fond of your company." Naruto gave a snort of laughter. "Well, with that incentive, how can I not come home? And don't forget the letters I wrote you. Whilst I will work hard to convince you again that I love you when you get home, it would be nice if we could just pick up from where we left off." "I suppose I can read the letters," Naruto commented in a voice that sounded as though it was a lot of effort for her. "And I have something to tell you when I get back." "Can't you tell me now?" he asked, only getting a cheeky smile and a shake of the head in reply. "Why not? It's more fun this way. Plus now you can know what it feels like whenever I've left, not knowing what I was coming back to." "Troublesome woman," Shikamaru playfully snapped, silencing her laughter with a kiss. "I'll be back as soon as I can," Naruto promised before she kissed him goodbye. With one last smile she stepped out of his hold and made her way over to the waiting men. With a wave at Shikamaru she walked out of the gate. Heaving a melancholy sigh, Shikamaru turned and made his way back to the estate, already running through the formations that had been planned for the army made up of all the various ninja villages. He had been informed the other day by his father that Shikamaru was being placed as the strategist in one of the largest squadrons, meaning his strategies could spell the failure of the war. However, he wasn't going to let himself fail. Not just for Naruto, but for those he will be fighting beside. Chapter 63: The Monster You Know. Naruto's POV. She hadn't even realized that she pushed her limits with Shikamaru. Even when she pulled pranks and was loud to get attention, she never drew individual attention to herself. Except when Shikamaru ended up with chalk in his hair. It wasn't that she couldn't help laughing at him. It hadn't bubbled up in a way that she couldn't force back down. At the time she had figured she acted the way she did because Shikamaru looked so much like his father, who had always been kind, but it was Shikamaru's attention afterwards that made Naruto realize why she had stepped out of her usual bounds. He had never looked at her with hatred or disgust. Normally his eyes glazed over her, not really noticing her. Unlike the other students, he didn't see her as annoying, and unlike Choji, he didn't see her as an eyesore. That realization helped to soothe the sting of Choji's rejection. She came to this discovery when Shikamaru started to notice her. From the day that she brushed the chalk off him, his eyes had stopped glossing over her. On the contrary, his eyes saw her in a sharp focus that Naruto wasn't sure she was comfortable with. The idea that someone saw her as something other than a monster was foreign to her. Even those who didn't spit her name with acid often had a formal, distant air to them. But Shikamaru hadn't been formal. He had studied her. Every inch, every gesture, every inflection. And that terrified her. What if she really was the monster everyone said? What if she was an incompetent moron? Even though she was scared, she also didn't want Shikamaru to stop. It was exciting to be seen with something other than hatred. There was something about her that intrigued him. So when he asked her to spend time with him and his friends, she had said yes, even if it meant being near Choji. Maybe she didn't have to worry about becoming a monster. Maybe she could become something else, and Shikamaru could help her discover what that was. She let him study her, even though he discovered she couldn't read. Instead of hurting her with the information, he used it to help her. It was the first kind act someone had done for her since Choji's rejection, and she held her breath, waiting to find where it would go wrong. But it didn't. As they grew older, Shikamaru's gestures became more subtle, gentler, more frequent, and yet bolder. Every time he did something, she had to remind herself that he was just being kind. That he probably pitied her. Even when constantly reminding herself of this, she still fought hard to commit every touch and kind word to memory. When they left the academy, she had thought those memories would have been enough. She had never expected to miss Shikamaru's analytic gaze. Was she no longer interesting? Or had he realized she was a monster and wanted to be as far from her as possible? It began to bother her that Choji liked to frequent Ichiraku Ramen. Whenever she saw him appear at the food stand, she would feel herself smile and look around for a bored-looking boy. The disappointment that followed not seeing said boy was a sharp reminder that she was a monster and no longer interesting enough for Shikamaru to seek out. She had tried to smother that feeling, especially when she was riding on the exhilaration of completing an A-rank mission. And yet she had felt her smile drop at seeing the singular genin joining her and Sasuke at the ramen stand. They had swapped stories about their recent missions, Sasuke pressing Naruto to tell Choji about the bridge named after her. When they left nearly an hour later, Sasuke started laughing. "What?" she sighed, wondering what weird thing set him off this time. Trust the emotionally repressed one to like the emotionally suppressed guy. When the blonde just raised an eyebrow in confusion, he rolled his eyes. You dummy, like Shikamaru. You were like a pouting little pup when you realized he wasn't with Choji. I thought you had a thing for him in the academy, but now I know for certain. You're imagining things. You've been spending too much time with Sakura and now you just want to spread gossip, Naruto huffed. In reply, her teammate just laughed. Aha, and I'm going to enjoy watching you and Nara awkwardly circle each other. He grinned at the glare that Naruto gave him. She hated the sly smiles Sasuke gave her from then on when she would unconsciously skin crowds. Every time she saw that look, she would scoff and lower herself off her toes and pretend she didn't care who was near her. That didn't stop the comments he made whenever they were alone. His favorite time to do so was when they were on missions. Naruto knew that if she yelled at him to shut up, Kakashi-sensei and Sakura would have too many questions for them, which would just give him more amusement. On one particular mission, she found herself unable to not blow up at him. "Have you seen your boyfriend lately?" Sasuke taunted as Naruto stood in thigh-high water, scaring fish into the path of Sasuke's kunai. "Shut up," Naruto snapped, gathering the fish that Sasuke had already speared. She shoved them into the boy's arms before beginning to walk off towards camp. "If your relationship is having that much trouble already, maybe you should ask Sakura for advice," Sasuke snickered. Turning sharply, Naruto went to threaten him with bodily harm if he breathed a word to the pink-haired girl. However, before she could even make a sound, she was slapped by a fish. Blinking in surprise, the blonde looked down at Sasuke, who was doubled over laughing. "I cannot describe the smell and sliminess that is now on my face," Naruto shuddered, only for Sasuke to laugh harder. With an annoyed huff, she jumped forward, knocking Sasuke over and stealing his shoe. She lightly slapped him with the sole of the sandal before taking off running, making the boy hobble after her, demanding the return of his footwear. She refused until Kakashi-sensei made Sasuke ask nicely. When she saw Shikamaru again as they waited for the Chunin exams to start, she was thankful that Sakura was with them. If she hadn't been, Sasuke would have surely started whispering things in her ear and laughing. Instead, he just shot her a look before sneakily nudging her closer to the Nara. When her teammate did that, she became incredibly aware of her breathing and her heart racing. She tried to focus on slowing both whilst listening to the information being dumped on them. There was a stiffness to her body that came from the inquisitive stare that was analyzing her. The feeling was familiar and exciting, but also terrified her. He was probably studying her to see if she was still a monster. If only she wasn't. She had only seen Shikamaru once since discovering what she had caged inside. There was this thought that nipped at the back of her mind, that what if Shikamaru knew now because she did, that he had somehow read her thoughts and knew how truly dangerous she was. From then on, she didn't have to scan a crowd in the hope of finding Shikamaru. She wasn't sure what changed, since Shikamaru didn't seem to be studying her like he used to, but she found herself in his company anyway. Part of their sudden companionship came from Shikamaru's sensei. Whenever Suma-sensei saw her, he would joyfully declare that they needed a break from training, or would press them both into talking. Shikamaru was never one for many words, and Naruto became uncomfortably aware of the fact that she couldn't bring up the Ninetales or that her new trainer was trying to help her use his chakra. These two factors often led to the two genin standing in silence as Asuma-sensei muttered about hopeless youth under his breath. Even though the man was oddly fascinated by his student's friendship, he was a kind man. When Naruto was suffering from chakra depletion, he had taken it upon himself to make sure she had dinner and was walked home. Admittedly, she had enjoyed the dinner, even if the sensei did disappear towards the start. It hadn't been until Shikamaru caught her, as she toppled forward towards the hot plate, that she realized that he had never really made physical contact with her since they were little, and he had found her in the forest. He had hit her on the back when he had made her laugh with a mouthful of food, but it wasn't the same as the gentle grasp he had of her shoulder, or the way his fingers had lingered on her shoulder when he pushed her back into the seat. After she had had food, allowing her to wake up, she tried to start a conversation with Shikamaru, remembering how she had missed him over the last 6 months. Surprisingly, the Nara reciprocated her attempts and found them easily joking and telling each other stories about their training. After the dinner she had with him, she had to focus on training again, which unfortunately landed her in the hospital. However, she woke to Shikamaru's smiling face. Even after she exploded in panic, he still smiled, thankful that she had recovered. She hadn't thought to question why he had been in her hospital room, and she hadn't felt worried that she had been vulnerable, and instead found the idea of him sitting with her comforting. Even when she felt the same dark presence as whenever she saw Gaara, it was Shikamaru standing with her that kept her level-headed. He was much smarter than her and much calmer. Even when she admitted that she was a monster, a demon that could rival whatever Gaara thought was in him, Shikamaru didn't flinch. Instead, he gave her an angry look as he forced her to look at him. "I don't understand this demon thing you said, but you are not a monster." He put one hand on Naruto's flat stomach. "Even if some sick bastard put a demon spirit in you, that wouldn't make you a demon or a monster." Naruto's heart started beating hard enough that for a moment she worried that it was going to break her chest apart. When Shikamaru took her hand and led her to Choji's hospital room, she prayed that he wouldn't let go. She needed his touch. She had told him she was a monster. She had wanted him to run. They had become closer since the start of the Chunin exam, and the idea of him finding out what she was later was too painful. She wanted him to leave on her terms. But he hadn't ran. Instead, he reassured her that even if she had a demon inside her, she could never be a monster. She had had to fight the desire to wrap her arms around him as tightly as she could. She settled for holding his hand, and when Choji went to the bathroom, she had braved to reach up and gently run her fingers over the bruise forming on his jaw. She had caused it, and yet Shikamaru gave her a lazy smile that made her face feel warm. There was still dread buried inside her, though. That fear shook her when Shikamaru had had to leave her, Sakura, and Kakashi-sensei's dog to give them time to catch up with Gaara and the two other sand ninjas. She had planned to volunteer to stay behind, realizing whoever did were liable to die. When Shikamaru had declared that it had to be him, she had wanted to scream no, had thought she had screamed no. She was the expendable one. She would have argued with him if it wasn't clear that he couldn't be persuaded. She had also felt a wave of violence come from Gaara. She couldn't leave Sasuke to fight him alone. However, she had to throw over her shoulder that Shikamaru had to catch up to them. He wasn't allowed to die. She never said that she wasn't allowed to die, though. The moment she had been able to sense Sasuke, she knew something was dangerously wrong. The entire mission was going sideways. They had only a bunch of genins and one Chunin to verse powerful opponents. She had been trapped inside a dirt dome and thought Shikamaru had betrayed her, and they kept losing allies. And when she finally caught up to Sasuke, he just gave her a sad smile. "Who else was on the team?" he asked. "Neji, Choji, Kiba, and Shikamaru." Do you love him?" "Shikamaru, I mean." Sasuke knelt down, washing his hands in the river. "What?" "No." She frowned at her teammate, wondering why he was acting strange. "Too bad. If you did and he died, it could be like a part of you died instead. That would be better." Sasuke stood up, drying his hands on his pants leg. "But unfortunately, even if it might work that way, we'll never know." "Why would you want to kill Shikamaru, though?" She took a tentative step towards him, assessing his relaxed stance. "Because I don't want to kill you," Sasuke admitted mournfully. "Sasuke, Let's go back to the village. Sakura is worried about you and we've been out all night. She tried to give him an encouraging smile but was fairly certain it was a grimace instead. You know I need to defeat my brother. Sasuke still hadn't turned to face her as he whispered to the water lapping at his feet. And I finally found out what I have to do to be strong enough. With a shaky breath, Naruto asked the question that her mind screamed to not utter. What do you have to do? I should have guessed it would be you, Sasuke continued as though he hadn't heard her. I tried to ice everyone out after my brother, the one I cared about the most, betrayed me. And yet, somehow I knew when I first saw you that you were going to be the exception, you were going to be the one person I couldn't keep out. You're my sister. He finally turned to look at her, his face filled with regret. I love you, Naruto. Although she opened her mouth to reply, nothing came out. She wasn't sure what to reply. Sasuke was like her brother, and the fact that he returned the sentiment should have filled her with joy. Instead, something about the way he said it filled her with fear. She had the thought perhaps love was nothing but fear, fear for the person you loved, whether it be for their safety or for your own. That's my key to being strong enough to defeat my brother, Naruto. I have to kill my best friend. And that's you? You're the only one I care about. As her world tilted, Sasuke charged. She barely had time to stumble back, missing Sasuke's kunai at her throat by centimeters. If it hadn't been for Kakashi-sensei's and Pervy Sage training, she wouldn't have been able to instinctively pull out a kunai of her own to block his next blow. The strength of the swing reverberated through her arm. She gritted her teeth when Sasuke twisted the blade, making it bite into her fingers. Pushing back, ignoring the slippery blood that ran down her hand, she forced Sasuke to step back, giving her the opportunity to jump away. She wanted to scream at him to stop, but she knew it wouldn't have worked. His face was set into a hard expression. His attacks were precise, calculated. No matter what though, Naruto couldn't bring herself to retaliate. A small voice in the back of her mind told her that she couldn't win the fight if she was holding herself back and her opponent was fighting to kill. Oddly enough, the voice sounded like Shikamaru instead of one of her teachers. She couldn't listen to it though. She couldn't attack Sasuke with more than blunted teeth. Knocking him out, that was the answer. Knocking him unconscious and dragging him back to the village. But there was no denying that Sasuke wasn't holding back. She had hoped that when it came down to the fatal blow that Sasuke wouldn't follow through. That hope was ripped from her mind as she felt her flesh tear apart, birds screeching in her ear. The electricity ran through her body, making her heart spatter. Naruto took a shuddering breath before coughing blood onto Sasuke's cheek. A tear ran down his face to smear the crimson splatter. As she watched another fall, her knees buckled, leaving her to hang heavily on Sasuke's arm. The weight pushed at her collarbone, making her realize just how far her teammate's hand was through her body. For a moment she wondered if the electricity would make her glow. The chirping stopped, and Sasuke's free arm came around her waist, holding her up. As he removed the arm spearing her chest, she noticed blood and the clinging scent of charred flesh. Naruto looked up at Sasuke's face, not hearing the words that tumbled from his lips as she struggled to breath. I just wanted to save you, she thought. Are you going to let him win like this? A voice asked in her mind. It was rough and angry, with a cynical wit to it. She had heard the voice before. She used to talk to it when locked in the iron box for days. It fed her fire, telling her to not go out in such a pathetic way. She had thought it was an imaginary friend at the time. Now she had her doubts. I'm not letting some Uchiha kill me, so you better find your feet. It's hard. I can't feel them. Try kicking him, that might help, the voice sniggered. You useless brat. I suppose I can help you if it means I won't die. She watched Sasuke's eyes widen as red chakra flowed off her violently. Unfiltered rage filled Naruto as her heart continued to spatter. Her ripped, charcoal flesh closed, hiding her blackened heart. Whilst she had control over her limbs, she had little control over her intentions. She matched Sasuke blow for blow. Every injury he landed healed before a drop of blood managed to hit the ground. Even with her new fighting drive, when her kunai was going to strike Sasuke's jugular, she stopped herself, costing her valuable energy. As she found herself hitting the bank of the river hard and her heart giving one final, pitiful pulse she couldn't regret not taking that deadly strike on her brother. He was her best friend, even as he killed her. When she opened her eyes to pain spiking continuously through her body, she felt a stab of regret. Sasuke had tried to kill her, was lost down a path that she might not be able to save him from, and the one thing she could give him she had withheld. Gritting her teeth against the cry of pain clawing at her throat, she sat up, picking Sasuke's forehead protector off the bedside table. She knew it was his because it had a deep scratch through the leaf symbol. The mark of a rogue ninja. Naruto had no idea how long she sat and stared at the metal plate, her eyes becoming unfocused many times. She slowly turned her head when she heard the door open, assuming it was one of her doctors. However, it was Shikamaru, smiling at her lightly as he leant against the doorframe, arms crossed. Well, so you're awake, huh? Shikamaru's voice rumbled through the room, soothing some of the guilt and questions running throughout her mind. Shikamaru! She whispered, her lips tugging into a little smile as seeing him safe. Next moment the boy had crossed the room, pulling Naruto into his arms. She flinched at first, remembering Sasuke's embrace as he pulled his arm out of her chest. The smell of fresh grass calmed her enough to hesitantly put her arms around Shikamaru, her battered heart giving a light, rapid beat, something she had never felt before. Hearing the Chunin's own heart beat steadily in her ear made her tighten her grip, worried that Shikamaru would slip away and leave her alone. Don't do that again, Shikamaru muttered into her ear as his fingers weaved through her hair. Never again do I want to hear that you've died. The raw pain that Naruto heard in his voice made her throat close and her eyes to water. The contrast between Sasuke's mournful embrace and Shikamaru's caring, terrified one made her laugh softly. I'm sorry. When Shikamaru eventually let her go in favor of sitting at the end of her bed, she felt lonely, already longing for his hold again. She wished even more that he would reach out for her when she explained what had happened after they had separated during the mission. Admitting that Sasuke was gone nearly broke her. She decided to turn the subject to a topic she had to apologize for. Shikamaru, what I said in the Earth Dome. Forget it, the Nara cut in with a gentle smile. I was trying to be convincing, so if I got you believing it, I must have been a good actor. Even if you forgive me, I want you to know that I'm sorry for doubting you. I'll never do it again. And she meant it. Even if it was hard for her to trust people, she did trust Shikamaru and had been truly shaken when he openly stated that he was going to betray them. She should have known he was faking it, but the sight of Choji opened old wounds. She drew a deep breath when Shikamaru put a hand on her shin and gave a light squeeze. That small touch was enough to banish the loneliness and help to cushion the blow of Sakura's disregard of her. Her pleas for forgiveness fell on uncaring ears. Sakura, assuming that Naruto had recklessly jumped into battle leading to her failing to save Sasuke, cut much deeper. Shikamaru growling at Sakura in defense of Naruto was the only thing that gave her the determination to swear that she was going to return Sasuke to the village. She didn't add that she would be doing so for herself, not for Sakura. When Sakura and Shikamaru were shooed out of her hospital room, she kept the brave face on, even with pervy sage. She refused to have anyone talk her out of saving Sasuke. Whenever she thought of letting him go, the image of him crying as he tried to kill her appeared in her mind, the anguish on his face, the unheard words. He hadn't wanted to hurt her. The sight of her jacket with a hole over the heart didn't help. When Shikamaru visited her again an hour later, she finally broke. She barely managed to say how Sasuke had said he had to kill her because she was his best friend. Her voice had broken off towards the end. Shikamaru had apparently managed to catch her words or read her lips because he pulled her into his embrace, letting her cry into his chest. She always tried to not cry in general, and crying in front of someone was something she refused to do. And yet this was not the first time she had shown vulnerability whilst in Shikamaru's arms. She still remembered when he had found her in the forest freezing to death. His hold then was as comforting and needing as it was now. The next day she felt lighter than she expected she would. Her body was still stiff and pained, but she wasn't repeatedly questioning how she could have saved Sasuke. Shikamaru's continued presence allowed her to keep those thoughts at bay for longer. She even went so far as to engage in some good-natured teasing with the boy when he started asking about who she had had a crush on years before. She didn't tell him who she had had feelings for, but she did tell him the circumstances, something she hadn't even told Sasuke. Shikamaru's gentle touches kept her together. When she accidentally aggravated her stomach muscles that were recovering from electrocution, his caress helped to brush the pain off. His fear and anger at her carelessness made her work harder at calming herself, but it wasn't until she was listening to his heartbeat that she managed to slow her own. If he hadn't visited her that day, she wasn't sure she would have been able to put herself back together. Unfortunately, once she was healed, she was to leave the village. Whilst that was something she was looking forward to, since she would be training to become stronger, she wished that she had had time to say goodbye to those she cared about. This regret was what made her surprised when she sensed Shikamaru's chakra near her. She sent Pervy Sage off ahead of her before turning to the Nara. "How did you know I was there?" He walked closer, noticing that their street was empty. "I sensed your chakra. I'm getting better at it." Naruto grinned. "Did you come to say goodbye?" "Yeah, I did," Shikamaru admitted. "Make sure you actually train. You're one to talk. Don't get yourself beat up while I am gone, and know I will come back stronger than you. Believe it." Naruto pointed a finger at Shikamaru. Shikamaru chuckled at her before his jaw set. When he stepped forward sharply, she flinched, but that instinct was lulled when she felt his hands cupping her jaw. She had no fear when he lunged, a sensation that was new to her. Shikamaru kissed her. The first thing that came to mind was that this kiss was much different to her accidental one with Sasuke. When she had gotten over her shock of the fall and realized she was kissing her soon-to-be teammate, she had been filled with disgust, which quickly morphed into fear when she had felt the hostile chakra aimed at her. This time there was no danger, no horror, she was safe, and it was actually quite pleasant. Her mind had barely processed what was happening when Shikamaru pulled back. For a moment she felt a stab of disappointment as she felt his hands let go of her and stepped away. Shikamaru looked like he was waiting for her to say something, but she honestly couldn't think of what she should say to someone who suddenly kissed her. There was a momentary thought that perhaps she was meant to thank him before she mentally slapped herself. Naruto, hurry up. Pervy Sage's loud voice cut over Shikamaru, making Naruto silently curse at his timing. "I have to go," she realized, not noticing she voiced the words. She realized why Shikamaru had chosen now to kiss her. "I won't be back for 2 years." "I know." Those 2 words sent Naruto's mind crashing. She was right. She pushed down the confusing emotions that started to appear at that realization. Instead, she said goodbye as she raced off to the gate. Pervy Sage and Naruto had traveled for barely 2 hours when the man smirked at her. "So did that Nara boy kiss you?" Naruto felt her face bloom red. "I don't know what you're talking about. Don't be creepy." Sporadically for the next 2 years, Pervy Sage would bring up Shikamaru. Naruto hadn't known that her teacher had such high regards for someone she wasn't certain he had talked to. During one particular occasion, when she was trying to use her chakra to sense Pervy Sage's presence and failing, she finally sighed, having enough of the man's pestering. "Pervy Sage, it was 1 kiss, 2 years ago," she snapped, jumping to her feet and straightening out her dress. "So you admit there was a kiss?" Pervy Sage declared in triumph, making Naruto groan. "Yes, okay," Naruto snapped. "He kissed me. But whatever made him kiss me is gone. It was 2 years ago. How do you know that he doesn't feel the same?" She rolled her eyes. "Because it was 2 years ago. Besides, I think there's a little fact that he doesn't know about." She gestured to her figure, wrapped in a forest green sundress, you know. "That's actually a good point," Pervy Sage admitted, gnawing on his lip. "But he's a smart kid, so maybe he's worked it out." Naruto snorted. "Or you could tell him, he might not mind." "No!" Naruto yelped. "What about if someone else in the village finds out?" Pervy Sage sighed. "You need to relax. He wouldn't tell anyone if he knew why you kept it a secret, and even so you are strong enough to protect yourself." "Not if half the village attacks me," she squeaked. Her large teacher rose to his feet, towering over the girl. He put his hands on her shoulders. "Kid, you're strong enough to protect yourself, and you have friends who will defend her. Besides, I wasn't going to say so, but the Nara kid knows your gender. And at least has an idea as to why you're hiding it. You told him? Naruto yelped, looking up at him with wide eyes. No. The day after your mission to save Uchiha, I found Nara in your hospital room. I got a chance to talk to him, and he admitted it then. That's also when I realized he liked you. So, he knows? Naruto asked slowly. And he's okay that I've been lying? And he's not going to tell anyone? Pervy Sage shrugged, his gaze going skyward. Like I said, he's a smart kid. I guess. Naruto paused. You're not lying to me, are you? Of course not. Why would I? Pervy Sage straightened up, grinning. Anyway, the bartender told me about this town that's on our way back to the village that I want to stop at. Why? Oh, well, there are a few people with sensory chakra that I thought could help you. At Naruto's raised eyebrow, he sighed in defeat. And they have very popular hot springs that are unisex. Of course, Naruto groaned. If you're going to take us on a detour, you better message old Granny. She had to admit that the town had been nice, and she was thankful that she was able to find someone to teach her sensory chakra, even if he had a punishment game for failures. Even though she enjoyed herself, she wasn't too happy that their detour took 6 months. She had had to threaten to send a letter to old Granny herself as to why they were taking so long before Pervy Sage agreed to leave. Admittedly, their stay had gone on so long because of her training and Pervy Sage publishing his latest novel, so at least it hadn't been entirely because of Pervy Sage not wanting to stop ogling naked women. The sight of the village, looking as she remembered the old Granny's face on the Hokage mountain, made her grin. She turned to look in the direction of Sasuke's apartment with the intention of going to see him, only to remember with an uncomfortable clarity that he was gone. Her hand touched where the Chidori had torn through her chest. Pervy Sage had assured her a number of times that there was no scar, but even so Naruto still believed that when the light hit her skin she could see a star-shaped mark at the center of Sasuke's target. With her tan it was more obvious to her eyes, and yet Pervy Sage kept insisting that she was seeing things. Plastering a happy smile on her face, she climbed down from the street lamp that she had scaled to get a view of the village. With her training she could feel her natural defenses of chakra sensing humming. It surprised her to realize how easily she scanned the chakra around her for threats. Over the 2 years' worth of travel she had lowered her barriers, but apparently they were quicker to come back than she thought possible. She tried to sense chakra signatures she might recognize, like Kakashi-sensei, Sakura, or Shikamaru's, but she was quickly overwhelmed by the sheer number of people in the village. Shaking off the dizziness such an experience caused, she pulled her chakra back in. Until she saw them in person there would be no way for her to memorize their chakra, allowing for her to find them whenever she wished. It wasn't hard for her to find Sakura, given that the pink-haired girl found them en route to the Hokage Tower. Naruto wished she hadn't when Sakura hit her. All she had said was that her teammate hadn't changed at all. Admittedly, Naruto herself would have disliked someone saying she was the same person she was years before, but Sakura didn't appear to think that her younger self truly needed to grow. When Shikamaru entered the office she recognized him instantly. For a moment she wondered if he was going to kiss her again. She had written him a letter that commented how she didn't mind the kiss, but she doubted that it would have stopped his feelings from going away. Even knowing that he wouldn't care for her anymore, she let herself hope as he surveyed her form. Then Sakura had commented harshly that Naruto hadn't changed, and Shikamaru agreed with her. She was reminded sharply of the difference between Shikamaru's and her own worth. He was too kind, too smart, too whole. She had fought hard to earn the village's respect, but deep down she knew she was still a monster. Shikamaru whispered to her that he was glad she hadn't changed, something that both helped to soothe her pain and multiplied it at the same time. When she tried to subtly look at Shikamaru, she noticed the woman standing next to him. She was pretty and strong-looking, someone a person could easily see Shikamaru being with. Her eyes held a deadly intelligence that could match the Nara's, one that Naruto could never hope to hold. And lastly, the way she held herself had a confidence to it that Naruto tried to fake but always fell short on. To suppress the envy and self-pity that was crawling up Naruto's throat, she decided to focus on what old Granny had said about a fight. She was relieved to find out that she wouldn't be fighting Shikamaru or his girlfriend. The last thing she needed was to be beaten by the mystery woman. Instead, her opponent was to be Kakashi-sensei, and she quickly realized she had the perfect tool to use against him. Before she climbed out the window, she shot Pervy Sage a glare. It was his stupid voice over 2.5 years that had made her actually hope that Shikamaru cared. And it was that little whisper that sent her mind spiraling. So many thoughts and questions rocketed around inside her that she couldn't even comprehend one of them. She figured her best option was to do what she always did with complicated thoughts and emotions. She had enough to worry about without her heart giving a painful beat whenever she thought of the superior woman standing next to Shikamaru. The relief and doubt she felt when Shikamaru denied dating the woman just showed Naruto how much control he had over her. That realization made her touch her non-existent scar. Very few people through her life had had the power to control her. Haruma had been able to control her, in a literal sense. Mostly, the horrible woman would use Naruto's friendship with Varrick to her advantage. And Naruto had known, when she found Waka dangling, that she had been his weakness, his leash, bound tighter than the rope around his neck. She had thought she had learned her lesson that day, that to care was to suffer. But then a little boy and his family had been nice to her when Haruma had taken her new allowance from her to pay for Yasuo's formula. She had never had someone her own age give her an act of kindness simply to be kind. She had cared, and then she had felt pain. She had grown to love Sasuke, and he almost literally ripped out her heart. Now she felt like she stood on the edge of a cesium filled with inky blackness, and if Shikamaru chose to push her in, it would hurt more than she would be able to handle. She just had to remind herself. She was a monster and had to stay away from him. And yet she flirted with him. She gave him a kiss when he was too drunk to know better. Even after he had rambled in a slur about loving Temari, she had kissed him. She stole the moment she didn't deserve, that weren't hers, and she didn't care. Part of her enjoyed this reckless behavior of hers. If Shikamaru loved Temari, but showed Naruto affection, the only one that would be hurt was herself. She had suffered nothing but pain. She would happily endure more for the illusion of being needed and desired. She couldn't bring herself to care how much Shikamaru was willing to use her as long as she was able to pretend that he only thought of her with every touch or smile he gave her. There was also a part of her that whispered, tempted, that maybe Shikamaru would come to care for her if she showed him affection that Temari wasn't. That small voice became a near-deafening one when she found out that Shikamaru had not been talking about the Sand Ninja. At that piece of knowledge, a question sounded through her mind that brought every bit of emotion she had managed to bury back with a pounding thump of her heart. What if he was talking about her? He knew about the Nine Tails and didn't care. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to silence the other voice in her head, the one that liked to remind her that she was a monster, that she was worthless. That voice questioned why Shikamaru be talking about her if he could be with anyone else, someone who wasn't broken. She smothered that voice when she was summoned to the destroyed village. The doubt about hers and Shikamaru's relationship that had welled inside her during her training with the toads were silenced as she took in the village. Her chakra instantly reached out, searching for those she cared most about. She wasn't able to find Kakashi-sensei, making her chakra reach out for Shikamaru and wrap around his own. No matter how much personal insecurity she had, defeating Pain was not something she was going to blink at. He had taken Pervy Sage from her. He was the student who betrayed their master, who had killed not one but two of her senseis, and when she sent a clone to Shikamaru's side, she saw the pain on his face and the damage to his leg. She didn't let her anger consume her. Pervy Sage's voice rang in her mind as she sized Pain up. If you let your emotions rule you, you may as well stick yourself with your own kunai. There's no difference, kid. Emotions can be powerful, but dangerous if not used properly. She had always seen emotions as a weakness. Pervy Sage had spent a good portion of their 2 years training trying to teach her that sometimes they were your greatest ally. But when facing one of her greatest rivals, her emotions were like telling all her fears to Haruma. Instead, she reminded herself that she had been trained by 3 of the best ninjas, and she was going to get justice for 2 of them. Pain was a powerful opponent, or plural. And she realized what it took Hinata's clansmen a while to figure out and relay to her. With each Pain that was destroyed, the others gained a power boost. She knew she had to be careful. As the battle went on, she lost strength and time. But at the same time, she needed the pains to deplete so that the real one's chakra would light up as a beacon for her. She had tried stretching her chakra out to find him but found she couldn't whilst trying to concentrate on the fight. Even with the help of the two Nara men, she found her strength giving out. She still had this pain, the one who had been Pervy Sage student, and still had the real pain to find and beat. When Pain, who the toads had told her was once named Yahiko, stabbed her with some of his rods, she wasn't even sure if she cried out. However, she felt her throat tear as she screamed at Shikamaru to run. When she looked at him and saw the determination in his eyes, she started to cry. She could sense his chakra dipping dangerously. Reaching out with her chakra, her fingers twitching, she funneled her own into the man. The more she gave him, though, the more he used. She could feel it. Her natural healing chakra was straining to heal the damage to Shikamaru's chakra veins. If she had hesitated for a second in giving him her remaining energy, he would be dead. And when she looked at him, trying to fight off pain whilst also trying to remove the rod in her stomach, she knew he didn't care how close he came to death. "I'm not leaving you, you idiot." All the fight drained from her body as spots danced in her vision, and her body burnt. "Keep this up, kid, and you're going to die. Back off." Naruto ignored the rough voice. Shikamaru's refusal to leave led to Pain throwing him high into the air. Pressure pressed against her ears, the silence painful. Stretching out her hand, she tried to send out her chakra. She had encompassed him in her chakra before, when they were younger. If she made the spheres strong enough, he would be safe. "Are you trying to kill yourself?" "I'm trying to save Shikamaru." As she was pulled into the space within connecting her, and the Ninetales' time slowed. "You don't have enough chakra for that." "Then give me some of yours." "Because I'm not dumb. If I die, you die, and honestly, that would be the best option for the entire world. It would take you at least 10 years to reform, and in that time the ninja villages can take down the Akatsuki." "You would kill yourself to save the village? After everything they have done to you, after the amount of times I have had to regrow your flesh for you. All for this boy?" "Not just for him. Didn't Haruma teach you that it's not wise to get attached?" "She did. And getting attached to Shikamaru was probably the most dangerous thing I've ever done, especially with what I have planned, but you know what? It was worth it. And so is caring for the village." "Oh, now I have to hear this plan of yours." A grumbled chuckle sounded through her mind. "If you promise to save Shikamaru and the village from pain, I will undo the seal. You can take over my body. I'll let you turn me into the monster that everyone saw me as. As long as you save everyone, starting with Shikamaru." Naruto felt a surge of chakra flow through her arm, extending out to wrap around Shikamaru seconds before he was to hit the ground. At the same time, Naruto faced the Ninetales' cage. The borrowed chakra was loosening the seal. She stared into the eyes of the beast that had tormented her life, the monster everyone saw when they had looked at her, the reason she knew what it felt like to have ribbons cut from her flesh, the reason she still flinched at creaks in the night. "Should we make the Akatsuki regret every coming after us?" "Sounds like a plan I can get behind." With a breath, she reached out for the seal separating her from the fox. Chapter 64, Spiraling. Her fingers had barely brushed the seal before a vice clamped around her wrist. Before she could comprehend what had grabbed her, she was spun and thrown away from the Ninetales' cage. Whatever threw her had done so gently. She rolled twice before stopping, allowing for her to see a man standing before a snarling Ninetales. Taking in the messy blonde hair and white robe, she wondered where she had seen the man. When he turned to smile at her, she studied his tanned face and bright blue eyes framed by thick black lashes. She had seen that face, often, but couldn't pin down from where. "Look at you," the man said in a lilted voice. He studied Naruto's face with a wide, cheerful gaze as she slowly rose to her feet. "You're so beautiful." When he stepped towards her, she took a step back, trying to work out how to get around this stranger to the Ninetales. Her weariness made the smile drop off the man's face and the Ninetales chuckle. "I'm not going to hurt you," the man assured in a soft voice, his hand reaching out for her. Again, she stepped away from him, making the Ninetales laugh. "She doesn't know you," he taunted to the stranger. "I've been her protector, not you." It clicked in her mind as the man studied her stance. You're the fourth Hokage. Instantly Naruto stepped towards the fourth, punching him in the face and making him tumble to the ground. You did all this to me. The fourth touched his jaw, looking up at Naruto from the ground. Nice punch. And I put the 9 tails in you because I knew you could handle it. Seriously? How the hell would you know? I was alive for what, an hour before you turned me into a cage. I was your only choice, an Uzumaki, Naruto spat. That's not true. There was another Uzumaki child in the village. The fourth slowly stood up, much like she had, smiling as though he was proud of Naruto's hit. But if the 9 tails needed a new host, I knew you would be the one. Just like I knew you'd be beautiful and strong. Again he reached out, as though to stroke her face, but was smart enough to not make contact. Instead his hand ghosted the shape of her cheek and jaw as his eyes darted around her face, taking in every detail. Naruto gave a sarcastic laugh, throwing her arms in the air and knocking his hand away. You don't know me. You're just a man who took me from my mother the day I was born to turn me into a prison. Or did she hand me over? Are you the one who banned everyone from telling me her name, or did she want to distance herself from the monster you turned me into? A heartbroken expression covered the fourth's face. He took a breath as though to steel himself for the conversation he was facing. No, that's not what happened. I had hoped that the third would tell you the truth when you came of age, but I guess not. The third died when I was 13. Naruto crossed her arms. What was he meant to tell me? This is going to be good. Do you know what he's going to say? She asked the grinning fox. He does. Let's move this conversation elsewhere. The 9 tails disappeared, leaving Naruto and the fourth on a grassy hill. The fourth smiled, stepping closer to Naruto and trying to put his hands on her shoulders. When she tensed, he dropped them, his smile drooping. The reason I knew you were strong enough is because I knew you'd be like your mother. Her name was Kushina, and she was just as powerful and beautiful as you. And had a mean punch too. When she told me she was pregnant, I knew there was a chance that the 9 tails would get out. So I made a seal for you, one that would allow you to gain control over the 9 tails' power. I knew you could. It was a risk, but if anyone in the world could do it, it would be you. How can you be so sure? Naruto exclaimed, wiping at her tears in frustration. She was confused, more questions than ever rolling around her mind. To make matters worse, her body was humming for movement, the adrenaline and fear from the fight with pain still running through her body. She wanted to hear more about her mother, but her thoughts kept moving to the image of Shikamaru kneeling over her, blood running down his pale face and his chakra burning out, only surviving thanks to Naruto funneling the remainder of her chakra into him. Again, the fourth smiled softly at her. The look in his eyes was one Naruto couldn't identify as he reached out to lightly touch her hair. Haven't you worked it out yet? The fourth studied her face again, trying to soak in all the details. It wasn't like when Shikamaru studied her. There was something about how the Nara looked at her that made her blush. The fourth's gaze didn't. If anything, she felt the desire to stand a little straighter. It was much like when pervy sage or old man Hokage would look at her, thinking she didn't notice. There was a hollow sadness in their gaze. The fourth's gaze was worse. There was a desperate desire to it, as though in a blink he was going to lose everything. Something gripped her stomach tightly as the image of her last interaction with pervy sage flashed through her mind. He had hugged her close before pulling back to cup her face. He had kissed her forehead before whispering into her hair that he was proud of her, and loved her, that before long she would be stronger than him and that he hoped to see that. At the time, Naruto had thought pervy sage was drunk and had shrugged off his weird behavior, while silently hoping that he was speaking true. After his death, she tried to forget that moment instead of wallowing at the fact that she missed the signs. Naruto, I knew you were going to be the most talented ninja the Leaf have ever seen, because how could I not know that about my own daughter? Her ears had stopped working. That must have been it. There was no way she heard him correctly. The fourth, one of the village's strongest, the person who single-handedly stopped other villagers from attacking them, was her. You're lying, she snapped. You're not my dad. You're the fourth Hokage. You're known as the Yellow Flash of the Leaf. You're a genius, and a hero. You can't be my dad. The fourth chuckled. You can't see the resemblance? Though I bet that if you smile it'll look like your mother's. Naruto, I know life couldn't have been easy for you, with your mother and I gone, and I'm sorry for that. You have no idea how much I wish I could have raised you. I still don't believe you. Naruto shook her head. It's just a coincidence that we have the same hair, and the same eyes, and tan skin. Okay, yes, that's a lot, but still. Pervy Sage trained you. He would have known. Why didn't he tell me? Pervy Sage? The fourth chuckled. I'm guessing you mean Jiraiya-sensei. He must have loved that. And I'm not sure why he kept it a secret for so long. But I assure you that I am your father. If so, how did I get my name? Naruto challenged, making the fourth chuckle again. From Pervy Sage's novel. I honestly believe you can bring peace into the ninja world. He reached out to wipe away the tears running down Naruto's face, only to have her turn away from his touch. You still don't believe me? The Nine Tails can confirm it. No, it's not that. She turned her back on him. I just don't cry in front of people. The only one who has really seen me cry is Shikamaru. And who is Shikamaru? The fourth asked in a tight voice. Her boyfriend, the Nine Tails sniggered, making Naruto jump. She hadn't realized that they were back in front of the cage. Her father obviously thought her denial would be hard to shake without his help. However, the fourth's reaction to the Nine Tails joke was all the confirmation she needed. He's her what? The fourth snapped. He's my friend, Naruto sighed, before giving the Nine Tails a hard look, and he better be alive. He is. And your end of the deal is about to be done too. Oh, no, it's not, snapped the fourth before he reached over, tightening the seal. Please tell me that tightening the seal wasn't literally that easy. The fourth laughed. No, it wasn't as easy as it looked. The Nine Tails started running off a list of swear words, making both the fourth and Naruto blink. Watch your language around my daughter, the fourth warned. How are you even here? Growled the wolf. I put some of my chakra into the seal to activate if the seal weakens enough to allow 8 tails out. Admittedly, I mostly did it so I'd have a chance to meet you, Naruto. And I'm glad I did. Though, can I ask you to do one thing for me? Sure, Dad. What is it? Stay away from this Shikamaru guy. No deal. The fourth glared at the Nine Tails, who was chuckling at the man's unhappiness. You said something about the seal being designed specifically for me, Naruto reminded. Ah, right. Again the Nine Tails disappeared in favor of a grassy hill. The reason the seal can weaken is because it's designed for you to be able to use the Nine Tails chakra. I knew you'd be able to do what even your mother couldn't. You can control the Nine Tails' power. Very few Jinchuriki have managed to control their tailed beasts, but I know you can. If it's so hard to do all that, how can you be so sure I can do it? Because you're my daughter. But I'm not as talented as you. Even if that was true, and I don't think it is, the ability to control a tailed beast's power has nothing to do with talent, and everything to do with the person. The fourth reached out his fingers, brushing Naruto's cheek. Your mother's chakra is also in the seal. She'll appear when you need her help. She will? Naruto smiled. There's that smile. The fourth drew her into his arms, kissing her on the forehead. I love you so much, Naruto. It's okay, sweetheart. He drew back, his hands on Naruto's shoulders. Now you were in the middle of a fight, weren't you? Crap, I was. She looked around for an exit before remembering they were technically in her mind. She looked back at her father, unable to deny the resemblance. It was nice to finally know who you are, and to meet you, Dad. The fourth just smiled at her, kissing her on the forehead again. I am sorry if you had to suffer because of the Nine Tails. I had hoped the village would see you as the hero you are. I'm sorry I punched you. Her father laughed, touching his jaw. At least I know my girl grew up to be tough. Now are you sure I can't convince you to stay away from that shiitake mushroom? Shikamaru, Naruto chuckled. And no. Damn. Well, I'm still glad I got to see you. But now I have to let you go. Just remember that I will always love you. She gave him one last smile before the feel of waking overtook her. Until the real pain was dealt with, she had to push her interaction with her father to the back of her mind. She did, however, know who she wanted to tell first. When she found Shikamaru, he was clearly exhausted and badly injured, but alive. She thanked the Nine Tails, getting a string of swears and abuse in reply. Her friends were all worried about her, after the beating they had seen her receive and her having lost control. It was this selfless fear that made Naruto pretend her chakra was just low. In truth, her body burnt, and many of her chakra veins had to be healed. Eiji had paled upon examining her. If she wasn't an Uzumaki, and a Jinchuriki, she would never be able to fight again, and would have died from giving Shikamaru her chakra. She had triple-checked that Eiji couldn't legally tell any of her friends just what state she was in. Eventually she would heal, and keeping her state silent would be wiser given how weak the village had become. If the Akatsuki knew that she was completely defenseless, then the entire village would suffer. The battle had been hard and overwhelming, and yet the events that followed it were what truly drained Naruto. When she had realized she enjoyed being studied by Shikamaru, and when she became closer with Sasuke, she wondered if they would cause her to break like Waku. Oddly enough, it wasn't their friendship that broke her. It was getting the respect she always wanted that started to unravel her. To try and quell her fears, she focused on the rebuilding of the village, even when she could feel her strength waning. The only time she felt safe and relaxed was when she was with Shikamaru and their friends. However, whenever she was alone or taking a break from the reconstruction, the doubtful whisper in her mind became a dull roar. She began questioning who it was that Shikamaru loved. It was hard for her to keep denying that she was his replacement. When the woman he truly cared about returned his feelings, she would be little more than a friend. And yet, Naruto couldn't bring herself to walk away. If anything, she encouraged him to use her. At least, if only for a little while, she could feel wanted. Shikamaru had an unusual ability to quiet the doubts and negativities in her mind. Unfortunately, with him injured, he couldn't be with her, as she helped with construction. Their other friends made a point to find her when she had buried herself in the cleanup. Often she forgot what time it was, focusing so fully on her work to stop other thoughts. Whenever one of them appeared to walk her back to the Nara estate for lunch, she was always surprised. She could tell they were worried, and yet she couldn't bring herself to pull back. Even the small voice in the back of her mind sounded worried. "You're going to burn out if you keep going. Like you care." "I don't, but when you do reckless things like this, I get a headache." "Well, deal with it." She thought that was the last of it, but as she guzzled water, trying to stop the dizziness to her head, the fox started again. "Don't start this again. I'm helping to rebuild the village. Don't pull that crap. I'm inside your head, I know what you really feel, and I know what you used to do. The only difference is that this time you don't have the village helping you along. I wonder what your Nara boy would do if he finds out." "There's nothing to find out about. Keep saying that to yourself, one day you might actually believe it too." She ignored him. It wasn't like last time. She was helping the village, and no one could hate her for that. Whenever he tried to bring it up again, Naruto started humming loudly in her head, off-key, until the Ninetales started banging his head against the cage door. Unfortunately, this would result in them both getting a headache. It was after one of these occasions that Niji found her rubbing her forehead. Since she had been unable to sense his approach, she jumped when he greeted her. "Sorry, I didn't mean to surprise you," Niji muttered, reaching out a hand to steady her as she swayed. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, just a headache. I've never had one before, and now I'm getting them almost every day. I'm not a fan." Turn around." "What?" "Turn around, I'll help you with the pain." Gripping her shoulder, Niji turned her away from him. When he ran his fingers down her back, she tensed. "Relax. I'm just going to push some pressure points to relieve the tension that's causing your headache. You'll still be able to use your chakra." Naruto tried to take a breath and release the tension in her muscles. She wasn't sure she succeeded, but when Niji gently pressed certain spots on her back, she felt them relax. The pinching in her mind dulled too, making her sigh. "Thanks, Niji." She felt the man move back enough for her to turn and face him again. When she had first seen him, she had been filled with fear. The anger in his eyes had reminded her far too much of the violent villagers. She had only been able to meet his gaze when he had hurt Hinata, a girl who had only ever been kind, if shy, towards her. Seeing Hinata broken and bleeding had reminded her too sharply of herself. Before she had realized what she was doing, she was standing in front of Niji, making sure he wouldn't make a run at Hinata as she was put on a stretcher. Even though she had just seen a showcase of his abilities, she meant every word when she said he would pay. That same rage she had unleashed on Hiroma was building in her. This time she controlled it and forged it to her advantage. When Niji had tracked her down only days after their fight, she almost didn't recognize him. He had done nothing to change his looks, but now there was a vulnerability to him, and he was the one who couldn't meet her eye. She feared that she had broken him, but it was nothing compared to the terror she felt at him admitting to knowing her gender. It wasn't until she returned from her training with Pervy Sage that she realized she hadn't broken him at all. Instead, he was simply much kinder, happier, and more open. Naruto had felt flattered when he had thanked her for helping him reach such a point. Now she had no issue meeting his eye, even if on occasion he avoided her gaze and turned red in the face. Is your headache from staying with the Naras? I know Mr. Nara is one of those running the village whilst Lady Tsunade is recovering, and I know Mr. Yamanaka and his family are staying at the estate as well. If it is too much stress on you, I can speak with my uncle about you staying in the Hyuga estate. It's much quieter there. I thought the Hyuga clan couldn't take anyone in because they are often targeted for your eyes. Niji hesitated. That's true, but I'm sure I can convince my uncle, especially with how close you and Hinata are. Thanks for the offer, but I like staying at the Nara estate. Even with the conflict that happened the other day? When she looked at him with surprise, he shrugged. Word got around, as did what happened to you years before. Naruto was thankful that Niji didn't offer any apologies for her past. Shikaka dealt with the man, and Shikamaru told me that the clan is keeping the gate closed when I'm there now to protect me. The Nara clan are good people. I'm actually really thankful that they took me in. Well, if there is anything you need, just let me know. Naruto opened her mouth before closing it again and scanning Niji's form. When she noticed that he wasn't suffering any injuries, she requested what she had wanted to ask of someone for a while. Do you want to spar? When Niji blinked in surprise, she elaborated. I could use a good sparring match to get some frustrations out. But everyone is either busy, injured, or doesn't want to fight me, which is a weird experience. Niji nodded. I could use a sparring match myself. Many ninjas are injured, and it would be wise to make sure those of us who are mobile keep our skills sharp. The blonde let the Jonin lead her to a training ground that was surprisingly empty. Giving Naruto forewarning that he wouldn't hit any chakra points that would affect the Ninetales, he charged. She was actually thankful that Niji had agreed to fight her. They were both close-range attackers, so they were each other's weakness. However, Niji's mind rivaled that of Shikamaru, meaning Naruto had to think carefully and quickly when dodging his attacks. Unfortunately, she no longer had the Ninetales' power to rely on either. It was uncomfortable to feel her strength waning as the fight prolonged. It was a stark reminder of how much damage her fight with pain had truly done to her. If Nagato hadn't given up the fight, Naruto wasn't sure she would have been able to fight the paper woman. This was a weakness she knew she couldn't show. Far too many in the village couldn't fight due to injuries, and she knew that the village was relying on her more than they would normally. There was also the Akatsuki. With the defeat of Pain and Nagato's change of heart, Naruto knew she had given them pause. This was reinforced by Shikamaru's team having taken down 2 members only months before. She saw Niji's palm coming towards her chest, knowing the hit would take her out of the fight. At the last moment his hand moved, grazing her ribs instead. It was this hesitation that allowed Naruto to land a hit to the man's jaw, making him fall back. He crashed to the ground with an unflattering oof. Before he could jump to his feet and continue fighting, laughter rang through their training ground. The two looked over, seeing Hinata grinning at her cousin sprawled on the ground. Giving Hinata a bemused look, Naruto held out her hand for Niji, wondering why he was blushing and avoiding her eye. Were you trying to get another feel? Hinata cackled, causing Niji to splatter his denial. I made sure to avoid her chest, he snapped, crossing his arms. Stop teasing me. Hinata just laughed. No. Naruto grabbed Hinata, pinning her arms behind her back. Quick, Niji, grab her feet and we'll drop her in the river. Hinata squealed and tried to stop her cousin from grabbing her legs. This made Naruto laugh enough for the dark-haired woman to slip out of her grasp and dance out of their reach. Niji sighed dramatically, making Naruto blink in surprise. Now we can't put her in the water. I suppose I'll just have to settle for someone else. What are you? Naruto gave a yelp when the man's arms clasped around her waist, lifting her into the air. She instantly tensed at the contact. Niji was leaner than Shikamaru, and smelled like a strong wind right before a storm. She tried to calm her racing heart and the tightness in her throat. Niji, Hinata giggled, stop flirting with Naruto. I'm not. I'm dunking Naruto in the water. True, that would be horrible flirting, Naruto pointed out with a laugh, trying to kick Niji and get him to drop her. Well, it is Niji, Hinata shrugged, sniggering when Niji exclaimed his disapproval. What's that supposed to mean? I think she's trying to say you suck at flirting, Naruto clarified. I say get her. What's going on? The three looked over to see Kotetsu frowning at Niji, who still held Naruto. Niji's attacking us, Naruto answered simply, trying to shrug around the uncomfortable tightness to her muscles. The Jonin finally let her go, stepping back. Naruto, don't say that. They will believe you. Yeah, Naruto, he wasn't attacking us, he wanted to see you in a wet shirt, Hinata said, a serious expression on her face. Niji scowled at Naruto. You're a bad influence on my cousin. Me? She's the bad influence. Kotetsu shifted his gaze from one person to another, finally settling on Naruto with a slight shake of his head. I came to get you cause the Kazekage sent people to help with the rebuilding and one wants to meet you. Naruto nodded, tugging at her shirt and trying to remove the feeling of someone else's touch. With a quick goodbye to her two friends, she followed Kotetsu to where a group of sand ninjas organizing building materials. Before she had a chance to speak with them, a voice called out to her. Hello, Naruto-sama. Naruto turned, finding a girl with curly, light purple hair standing between two imposing jonins. The girl would have had to be only a year or two younger than Naruto, and had a small smile on her face, showing a dimple on either cheek. The blonde frowned at the girl, trying to place where she had seen her. Then she remembered. The girl's dark eyes were yellow, something Naruto had noticed when the sick girl had cried to the Sand sibling sensei about how she should have known of the attack on Gaara. The sensei had hushed her, reminding her that it had been Gaara himself who had ordered for her to rest instead of use her abilities, so she was not to blame for the Kazekage's kidnapping. She had also been one of the first people in the clearing upon Gaara's revival, and had ordered the reluctant Sand leader to get a medical checkup upon returning to their village. Such a tiny woman bossing around her superior had made Naruto laugh into her hand, getting a mocking glare from Gaara. You're the head of the intelligence department, right? Gaara said you were 10 or something when you got the promotion. 12, actually, and yes, I'm Hatsumi. It was shortly before Lord Gaara became Kazekage, Hatsumi corrected with a friendly smile. Anyhow, I wanted to talk to you about pain, and any other information you might have on the Akatsuki. You were also the one who saved Gaara, so you might be about to give us information that has been eluding us until now. I don't think I know anything others don't. Anything is helpful. Hatsumi waited for Naruto to reply. When she didn't, the Sand Ninja simply smiled politely. Can we go somewhere to talk? Naruto nodded before leading Hatsumi to one of the dining tents, which was mostly vacant. She noticed the two large jonins following them. Hatsumi explained that she was to return to the Sand in 2 days and the men were to escort her home under Gaara's orders. It was with this comment and a wave of Hatsumi's hand that the blonde noticed Hatsumi's bracelet. It was made of woven twine and colored beads. At first it looked to be clay beads, but Naruto could feel a slight hum of Gaara's chakra from them, making her realize that the beads were made of Gaara's sand. It made her wonder if Gaara had given the girl an extra defense. Kankuro's joking comment of his baby brother having a crush ran through her mind, making her question if it had weight to it. When they had seated themselves, Naruto started explaining what she knew of pain with prompting from the head of the intelligence department. Even when she was describing her interaction with Nagato, she felt as though she was failing to provide anything useful to whatever information Hatsumi was gathering. However, the Sand Ninja looked highly intrigued with what Naruto had to say. Lord Gaara told you about me gaining my title at a young age. Hatsumi started when Naruto had finished her tale. Did he tell you about my Kekkai Genkai? He said something about you being a mind reader, like the Yamanaka clan? Not quite, but somewhat. The Yamanaka clan can use a jutsu to read people's memories. I, however, can read what a person is thinking at the exact moment that I want, and I can follow that line of thought through their entire mind. How does that work? Hatsumi pondered how best to explain it before speaking again. Take Tatsuo here, she gestured to the man standing on her right, whose eyes widened, clearly wondering what was about to be revealed about himself. I know that his favorite scent is golden suncap flowers. Whenever he smells them or hears the name of them, he subconsciously connects it to the memory of the garden his grandfather tended to. From there I can access memories of his grandfather, which opens more connections in his mind. Please don't, muttered Tatsuo, making Hatsumi chuckle. I won't unless Lord Gaara needs me to, she assured. If you imagine a thought as a rope, I have the ability to grab said rope and follow it through a person's mind, and even assess the emotions connected to the thoughts. That's really powerful, Naruto said. And it can be very confusing. When I first unlocked my ability, I often lost myself in others' minds. It took me a long time to untangle my true memories from the minds I had read. Why tell me about your Kekkai Genkai? It can't be safe to just explain it to people. No, and I normally don't, Hatsumi admitted with a small shake of her head. But Lord Gaara allowed me to see his memories of you and view how he sees you, so that I know you are trustworthy. You see, Lord Gaara was semi-conscious when the One-Tails was extracted. Although he couldn't recall his memories, they were in his mind and I was able to view them, with his permission, of course. From what I was able to find out, it appeared that Pain, or as you have said, Nagato, was running the Akatsuki. However, if that was true, the Akatsuki would have been destroyed with your victory in battle. Moreover, the one who attacked Lord Gaara said to the Kazekage that he viewed explosions as art. If Nagato truly wanted to bring about peace, in his misguided way, why have someone on his team who worshipped destruction? Well, one of the Akatsuki members at Shikamaru went up against worship death as well. He loved to kill and treated it like a ceremony, according to those who witnessed the Suma-sensei's death. Interesting and tragic. Hatsumi stared at the table between them. I will wish to speak to whomever witnessed that Akatsuki member in battle. Choji and Ino did. Don't ask Shikamaru about it, he has already filed a report, and shouldn't have to relive his sensei dying. Kotetsu saw Asuma-sensei's death. He was the one we sent to fetch you, correct? Tatsuo asked, his deep voice rumbling through his barreled chest. When Naruto nodded, he asked Hatsumi if he could go locate the leaf ninja in question. Of course, Tatsuo, just try not to scare the poor man. Hatsumi gave him a kind smile before turning back to the blonde. Lord Gaara has instructed me to be open and frank with you about any information I might gather about the Akatsuki. At the moment, I believe my suspicions are becoming confirmed. I believe that there is another person ruling the Akatsuki. A true mind that the Akatsuki are hiding from us, or someone who controlled from the shadows without Pain's knowledge. Either way, the true leader would have to be powerful to be able to make so many contradictory personalities work together. The petite girl sighed. Unfortunately, the only time I have been within range of an Akatsuki member, I was rather ill and unable to read him. Though I'm starting to doubt that the Akatsuki members would have answers to my questions anyway. Do we have any idea who the leader might be? Naruto asked, absently returning a wave from a passing villager. No, but I was able to get a spy close to the Akatsuki. She was able to find out that since Lord Gaara's kidnapping, they have only taken on one new member. This is interesting to me because when Shikaku was extracted from Lord Gaara, all members were needed. So why aren't members being replaced as they are lost? Why is this new member the only one? Maybe he is really powerful, suggested Naruto. That is a possibility, or he might be the second in command to the real leader. It's hard to tell at the moment. Hatsumi sighed, pondering over what they had discussed. How is Gaara doing? You know, after having the One-Tails extracted. Hatsumi signaled for her remaining guard to leave them before she turned back to the blonde. Lord Gaara said you would ask? He also told me to answer all your questions. It has been difficult for him to adjust, especially to the silence. I know firsthand that Shikaku was a chatterbox. Lord Gaara has still needed me to help him sleep, but he is getting better. Wait, what? You help Gaara sleep? The small girl seemed to realize how it sounded because she blushed darkly. Not in any inappropriate way. I don't know if you are aware, but Lord Gaara used to be kept awake by Shikaku. When Lord Gaara became Kazekage, this proved problematic, so I began to repress Shikaku's thoughts from Gaara's mind to allow him to sleep. That's how I know the One-Tails talks a lot. Naruto couldn't help but smirk at the Sand Ninja. Do you sleep in Gaara's bed? No, yelped Hatsumi at Naruto's teasing. Though, to use my abilities I do have to be near him as he sleeps, but I make no physical contact. So your Kekkai Genkai doesn't need touch? Well, it would be easier if I made contact, but Lord Gaara has requested I never touch him. At Naruto's confused look, she went on, Shikaku once told me why as Lord Gaara slept, but I don't know he's telling the truth. He told me that I am the type of person that Lord Gaara would have hurt before he met you. Shikaku said that Lord Gaara fears he will return to his old self and hurt me if I ever get too close to him. I don't believe he will, but I have no reason to make contract with my Kazekage anyway. Naruto looked at Hatsumi's bracelet again, wondering if Gaara had made it for her to protect her from himself. Naruto could understand Gaara's fear though, given that she had felt similar with Shikamaru after she had lashed out at Varrick. She had tried to convince herself that it had been the Nine-Tails who had thrown him off his feet, but the fox had cackled in her head. It wasn't me, and you know it. Does your boy toy know how violent you can be? Naruto was impressed by Gaara's will to keep his distance from someone who saw him for who he was and still wanted to be near him. Naruto had tried with Shikamaru but found she didn't have the strength to stay at arm's length from him. Are there still people who want to get rid of Gaara? The Sand Ninja gave a smile that chilled Naruto. When you went after Lord Gaara, those who wish Lord Gaara dead tried to make a move for the Kazekage title. I got our best healer to fix me up whilst this was going on, and read all the higher-ups. When Lord Gaara had returned, and Kankuro-sama had recovered, I passed the information on to the Sand siblings. Those who would harm the Kazekage were of course at the top of the list. Lord Gaara handled the situation well, making sure to win over many of the people and arresting those who were planning harm to the village to get at Lord Gaara. His position is safe, as is the village. When Hatsumi's guard returned with Kotetsu, Naruto extracted herself from the conversation, returning to help the rebuilding process. As she walked closer to her designated area, the man in charge came up to her. Hey, would you mind working with the Akamichi woman? At Naruto's frown he went on. She's Umbu and can read people really well, and it makes people uncomfortable. The blonde laughed. I just finished talking to a girl who literally had a gift for that, so I don't mind. It wasn't hard for her to spot the Akamichi woman, seeing as she had the traditional build of her clan. She smiled widely at Naruto when she spotted her. Hi, I'm Aliyah, but you can call me Laya. She scanned Naruto. I would hug you, but I can tell you don't like physical contact. Don't worry, I won't tell people either. I see what they mean about you, sniggered Naruto. Yeah, but you can ask me for information about myself if you want, to even the field. How long have you been in the Umbu? About 12 years. I joined around the time that Tayamato did. We were both on Kakashi's team. Does that mean you have some good stories about the two? Naruto grinned when Laya nodded. I think I'm going to like working with you. Naruto would be lying to herself if she said that Laya's presence didn't make her uncomfortable. She had noticed so quickly how much Naruto secretly hated being touched by most people. This was a fact that she had tried to hide for a number of reasons, and yet with a quick skin she had known. Every day they worked together, Naruto feared that Laya would notice that she was having difficulty breathing, that she jumped whenever someone appeared near her, and adrenaline was constantly flooding her system. It was hard to tell if the Jonin noticed or not, but she never commented. The Nine-Tails wasn't helping either. He constantly reminded her how weak she was, though she tried to deny what he insinuated to her. They aren't going to help you, not this time. Though they never finished the job years ago either. Congratulations, you finally have their respect and now you want them to be their old self. No, I don't. Naruto hissed at him. Are you sure? When is the last time you ate without prompting? Have you gone an hour without flinching? Your sensory chakra wasn't just for battle, and you know it. Without it, you don't know what to do. Just shut up, growled Naruto. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm happy. Did you say something, Naruto? Laya asked, putting down the wooden beam she had been carrying. Yeah, I'm fine. Naruto smiled, though she could feel it straining to stay in place. Laya stared at the blonde for a beat longer before nodding, seeming to accept what she was told. Naruto was thankful since she had no idea how to explain the dull, cold ache that had buried itself in her chest. She tried to dismiss the feeling, but whenever she was away from her closest friends and Shikamaru, she felt it clawing its way deeper into her. More than once she thought about telling someone that she felt as though she was drowning, but every time she did she felt a wave of fear. She knew her terror came from Haruma and the idea that no one would care or try to help her like so many children of iron believed. Part of her knew that it wasn't true, that she did have those who cared for her and her safety. She had seen the disgusted looks on her friends' faces when she had only hinted at Haruma's cruelty. However, no matter how much she tried to remind herself of that, there was a small voice that disagreed with her. That small voice had far too much control over her. The only times that she surfaced from the work she used to distract herself was when her friends came to insist she had a proper lunch, or when members of the Nara clan walked her home at the end of the day. Most in the group were around her own age or a bit older. She found it interesting to see the varying personalities in the Nara clan. Many had traits similar to Shikamaru, where they were highly intelligent but with very little motivation. Then there was Hiro, who reminded Naruto of a hyena. He was always snickering and seemed to take little in the world seriously, and yet, he was perhaps the sharpest mind in the Nara clan besides Shikamaru and his dad. Naruto liked to declare him a bad influence, especially when they were busted moving the workers' equipment around, making him spend an hour trying to locate everything only to have it more again. Hiro had tried to defend their actions by pointing out that they only did it because the man had been belittling Captain Yamato. June, another Nara, had pointed out that Hiro would have been more believable if he hadn't been cackling and grinning like a madman as he spoke. She picked up the last slab of wood to move it to its necessary location, only to hear a pained scream from behind her after she turned. Quickly she dropped the slab and turned, finding a man lying limp on the ground. Rushing to his side, Naruto turned him onto his back, only to find Hiro laughing at her. In retaliation, she punched him in the arm, making him give a real yelp of pain. From around another stack of building material, June and Amon, a Hyuga the men were friends with, appeared, laughing at their friend's pain. Rolling her eyes, Naruto stood, only to feel a wave of dizziness come over her. Her knees buckled, and next moment she was being held up by Amon, who was blinking down at her in surprise. Are you alright, Lady Naruto? He muttered in his soft voice. How many times do I have to tell you to stop calling me lady? Naruto put a hand to her head, closing her eyes to try to stop the world from spinning. Hiro, who apparently enjoyed eavesdropping, had overheard Kakashi-sensei and Shikaku talking about her recently discovered heritage. He had wasted no time in telling his two friends that she was actually the village princess. Since then, Amon had been treating her with the honor she deserved, though whether it was to annoy her or not was unclear. I think she just needs food. Amon, you should carry her though, Hiro exclaimed, jumping to his feet and being unable to hide his amusement. No, you should not, retorted Naruto, glaring at Amon, who had already moved to sweep his arm under her knees. But maybe Hiro would like to be carried. I wouldn't say no. I hate walking. Hiro went to jump in Amon's arms. Carry me like a princess. No. Amon stepped away, letting Hiro stumble to the ground with no one to catch him. June sniggered as he put an arm around Naruto, helping to steady her steps. Relax, he whispered to her. I can feel you tensing. Amusement laced his next words. Is Shikamaru's touch the only one you don't tense at? He grabbed her elbow when she tried to slam it into his stomach. He made sure the two men trailing behind them didn't notice her aggression before he turned serious. You need to stop what you're doing. What? Naruto felt her stomach drop. She had tried to be so careful, but maybe staying with the Naros wasn't smart. Shikamaru is healing, you are not, June said, his voice low. How much chakra are you filtering into him each day? June. I won't tell anyone, but you need to stop. Shikamaru can heal on his own from now. When Naruto just shrugged, June grunted in annoyance. Naruto, you are a guest of the Naros because of Shikamaru. That means your safety and health are also his responsibility. If you don't stop what you are doing, I will have to report it to him. Fine, she grounded out. I won't give Shikamaru so much chakra, but I'm not going to stop using my healing chakra to help him. Man, June shook his head, reminding Naruto of Shikamaru. They do like them headstrong, don't they? What? She asked. Never mind. I heard headstrong, Hiro piped up, slinging an arm over Eamon's shoulders and dragging him to catch up with the two. As Eamon pushed the hair out of his face, Hiro gave his signature bark of laughter. Are we talking about where our charming heir's affections lie? Naruto felt her insides turn cold, and she wished she could distance herself from the entire conversation. She bit down on the urge to mention that it was her that Shikamaru was planning a date for, not some other woman. She didn't need them to point out that she was a replacement. That was obvious to her, but she still liked to deny it. She's definitely strong-headed, June chuckled. And rather beautiful, Eamon added, only to blush darkly. Perhaps that was inappropriate. I'm sure she would be fine with being complimented by a handsome man like you. Hiro gave Eamon a shake, making his long hair sway violently. What do you think, Naruto, handsome or no? Naruto stopped, pretending to study the man seriously. Eamon was older than Naruto by at least 3 years, if not more. His hair was long like all Hyuga's, but was a lighter brown than most others. His lilac, pupilless eyes were more angular than his fellow clansmen, and his jaw had a sharper curve to it. Naruto couldn't see anything unappealing in the man's appearance, but he didn't draw her gaze like some others. Not bad. Definitely better than you, Hiro. Eamon snickered into his fist as Hiro looked insulted, a hand coming to cover his heart in a dramatic fashion. That hurts, darling. I'm surprised you aren't trying to make Shikamaru confess to her, June mused, continuing to lead the group to wherever they were meant to be going. Nah, he's taking strides to get with her, so he doesn't need me meddling. Hiro shrugged. That's almost mature of you. Eamon hid his amused smile behind his hand. I have my moments. June's dad and Satoru have forbade me from interfering too. Hiro sighed heavily, dramatically lamenting his situation. Naruto looked around, trying to find a good change of subject. Instead, she saw her team, clearly looking for her. She ducked behind Eamon, the tallest of the 3 men, making the Hyuga look over his shoulder at her. Is everything all right, my lady? Stop looking at me, she hissed. I'm hiding from my team. Why? June asked slowly, looking around for the white hair of her well-known sensei. Kakashi-sensei is acting weird and thinks we should hang as a group to keep the team strong and moral support. It just ends up with Sakura complaining about the rumors going around about me. She peeked around Eamon's hip, trying and failing to spot her team. As much as I care about my team, I just need a break from it all. That's too late, darling, Hiro said, staring at something she couldn't see. Your sensei has spotted you. Naruto swore before June gave her a sympathetic smile. I've got you. He turned to her advancing team, putting a joyful smile on. Hey, Naruto's team, how's it going? We're good. Why is Naruto hiding from us? Kakashi-sensei asked plainly, looking at her when she peeked out. Oh, Naruto agreed to spend some time with us and didn't know how to tell you she couldn't be in your team get-together. June lied so smoothly that for a moment Naruto wondered if she had forgotten actually doing what he said. That is an issue, Kakashi-sensei agreed, scratching his chin. I suppose you 3 can join our team. Naruto held in a groan, something Hiro didn't succeed in. June, however, nodded. Sounds like a great plan. June hooked his arm with Naruto, dragging her after her team. If he noticed her tense, he didn't show it. Hiro had taken to pulling faces behind Sakura's back as she complained that Kakashi-sensei wouldn't let her add her mud balls to the picnic basket that he had made Captain Yamato put together. Apparently Kakashi-sensei was holding a grudge from the captain binding him to a hospital bed. Naruto had decided not to ask. She couldn't help but give a small smile as she watched Aemon try to not laugh at Hiro's actions. The Hyuga was as overworked as Naruto was, and the blonde had noticed how his friend tried to make him smile at least once a day. She had failed to notice how her new friends were doing the same thing for her. When they reached one of the few remaining grassy fields, the two leaders of Team 7 stopped, instructing everyone to sit. Naruto felt her body give a painful shudder. She hid it though as she sprawled out on the grass, giving a laugh when both Naras flopped onto their backs. She half expected them to start gazing up at the clouds like Shikamaru did, but it appeared that this wasn't part of the Nara trait. Admittedly, the scenery helped to calm her some. The hill looked much like the one her father had created in her mind for them to talk privately on. Part of her still couldn't believe that the fourth Hokage was her father. Until she had found out about the Nine Tails, he had been her favorite Hokage. She had asked Iruka-sensei about him whenever he had gone into the history of the village. She had even tried to steal a copy of the fourth Hokage photo that had been hung in the third's office, but she had been busted. At the time, Naruto hadn't understood why the old man was so against her having the picture. Now, knowing that he was her father, and that the resemblance was fairly obvious with some thought, she could see why he wouldn't let her have the picture. When she had commented to Uncle Inoichi and Shikaku that it was difficult picturing herself as the great fourth Hokage's daughter, the two had told her about the silly names he came up for things and how he was often seen as dumb because he hid his intelligence under a heavy layer of idiocy and jokes. Both had commented that when they had first seen Naruto doing the same thing, they had thought she had found out about the habit and had adapted it out of a form of hero worship. They had appeared happy to hear that no, that was not the case, and it was just her personality. So, Naruto, Sakura started, making the blonde silently groan. Naruto laid back and stared up at the sky as the other girl went on. These are your friends from the Nara clan? One's a Hyuga, Naruto pointed out, indicating Aemon. The man looked up from stacking crackers on Hiro's forehead long enough to give a wave. Naruto snorted, wondering if Hiro was asleep or just didn't care. But you met him too from staying at the Nara Astar, didn't you? Sakura asked accusingly. Hiro opened his eyes, seemingly unbothered by the towering pillar of crackers on his head. What are you getting at? Also, Aemon, if you're going to do this, at least give me one to eat. When Aemon stuffed one in his mouth, he gave a muffled thank you. I'm just wondering why you get to sleep in a bedroom in an estate, while so many others have to sleep in tents with 8 other people. I sleep in the foundation, Sai commented, only to be waved off by Sakura. Kakashi-sensei and Captain Yamato rolled their eyes at the same time as Sai. You almost sound jealous, June taunted, munching on a sandwich triangle from the picnic basket. When Sakura glared at him, he offered her the remainder of his sandwich, getting a disgusted look in return. Sometimes Naruto was uncomfortable with the realization that she had managed to befriend the two Naras that actually had a read on human emotions. There was something reassuring being in a clan that was almost as bad as she was with emoting. I'm just wondering why Naruto is getting special treatment, Sakura pouted. Because Naruto saved us? Captain Yamato suggested with a frown. But he wasn't the only one who fought, Sakura argued. She does have a point, Naruto muttered, taking a cracker off the swaying stack on Hiro's forehead. She munched it slowly, feeling the shiver of pain rack her body again. No, she doesn't, Kakashi-sensei said, not adding any further comment. Instead, he stared at Naruto, making her worry that he would randomly hug her again. Kakashi is right, Hiro declared, making the crackers wobble dangerously. Naruto did a lot for the village, and the village reflected that. Not to mention Naruto took a lot of damage during that fight. I've seen plenty of people who are worse off than Naruto. Admittedly, it is hard to tell when Naruto is injured, Sai commented plainly. As though in response, Naruto's body shook with more pain. Every night she told herself that she would only filter her remaining chakra into Shikamaru at the end of the day. But every night she found she only had a little bit of chakra left. A mere drop in the ocean that used to be her stores. In the morning she had rejuvenated more, even after giving Shikamaru chakra the night before. She woke before him and would see him flinching in his sleep, his chakra veins still burnt like her own, his leg causing him discomfort, and even though she knew she shouldn't, she funneled at least half of her chakra into him. Lava ran through her system as she forced the chakra out of her and into Shikamaru. Her muscles clenched in protest, and the Ninetales would call her an idiot. Still, even as she told herself that she wouldn't do it ever again, that Shikamaru wouldn't want it, and that she couldn't survive doing this day after day, she still did it again and again. Each morning he would flinch, or groan in his sleep, and she would stroke his hair, his cheek, and his jawline as chakra played across her fingers, slowly ebbing into his body. She would watch her energy flicker over him, easing the tension and lines in his face. "Oh, I know what your problem is," Hiro declared, grinning up at Eamon, who was creating 2 more pillars of crackers to balance out the first. "Did you get better marks than Naruto in the academy?" "Sasuke and I are top of our class," Sakura boasted, making her team roll their eyes. "Naruto is the bottom of the class." "And there you do, Jun-san. You just said R&D is. So? You still think how you did in the academy is what level you are at now," Captain Yamato explained with an exasperated sigh. "It's not. Out of all those in your class, Naruto has made the most improvement. He is a sage now, Sakura. That is a title that even the most elite jonin can't always get, and Naruto did it in a month at age 16. On top of that, Naruto worked with jonin to instruct people during the fight with pain. He has proven himself to be able to strategize, lead, and take instructions and improve on them. He is at jonin level but realizes that when the Chunin exams were available to him, he had more important missions to complete instead of getting validation from his comrades. You still rely on instructions, unless you are forced to lead, and even then, you have trouble staying focused on multiple tasks. You are at a Chunin level." "Captain Yamato," Sakura gasped as Naruto wondered if Kakashi-sensei would be kind enough to use an earth-style jutsu to make her disappear into the ground. "I can make critical decisions and give orders if I need to." "You should work on showing that potential," Kakashi-sensei stated plainly, which shocked Naruto. It was with that one line that she realized her team and her friends had noticed how Sakura's usual negativity was draining Naruto. Although she cared for her teammate, she was starting to dread the very sight of her. She knew that Sakura was getting a lot of questions from the village about Naruto, and perhaps she felt overlooked or inferior, and was taking it out on the only person she really could. "Guys, just leave it be," Naruto said before standing. "I'm gonna head home." "We'll walk with you," Jun commented, jumping to his feet. He snorted when Hiro shook his head, sending crackers flying. Hiro then made Eamon pull him to his feet, with the declaration that he was too tired to get up. In retaliation, Eamon started softly kicking Hiro in the side until his only means of escape is to get up. This and the Naruto's grumbling complaints made Naruto laugh as Jun slung an arm over Naruto's shoulders and started leading her to the Nara estate. She barely had a time to shoot a goodbye over her shoulder at her team. As much as she appreciated how her friends tried to protect her, she was uncomfortable with the way that Hiro kept shooting her worried gaze. He had never seemed concerned with her emotional state when they had first met, and on the contrary appeared to enjoy seeing her try to hide the cracks starting in her mental barriers. Now he was one of the ones trying the hardest to keep her together. Part of her was mad at Hiro and Jun. She had enjoyed her date with Shikamaru. For a few hours it had just been them. She wasn't worried about who Shikamaru was really in love with, she didn't worry that she was letting down the village, and she didn't have any fear of the village finding her an address and punishing her for it. It was much like whenever she and Shikamaru spent time together. She found herself relaxing and just having a joke with someone who was important to her. Those moments were a glimpse into what her life would have been like if she hadn't been an orphan and hadn't been the cage for the Ninetales. In any other circumstance, these moments would have been bittersweet reminders of what could have been, but with Shikamaru they didn't feel fleeting. These moments felt solid and tangible. Unfortunately, when she went off afterwards to help Sakura, no matter how much she threw herself into her work, she couldn't stop thinking about what Hiro and Jun had talked about. They both were under the impression that Shikamaru was going to confess to the woman he actually cared about soon. Even running her chakra into the ground didn't stop their words from ringing through her mind. The next morning she tried to push it out of her thoughts as she funneled chakra into a sleeping Shikamaru. She hadn't had any chakra left the night before to give him, and she refused to let him go without. He had chosen to get the cast removed simply so they wouldn't have to postpone their date, even though it left him in pain. Naruto had seen him more than once trying to rub the ache out of his calf. When she had given all the chakra she could spare, she stood, only for the room to tilt and spin. She landed on the ground, hearing Shikamaru mutter her name in his sleep. "I'm all right," Naruto promised, kneeling next to the bed and stroking his cheek. "Just keep sleeping." She kissed him, feeling him respond. Pulling away, she gave herself a moment to clear her head before writing Shikamaru a note to know where she was. As the room tilted again as she walked out, she was tempted to not go and help Sakura and instead climb back into bed beside Shikamaru. Part of her screamed that soon she wouldn't be able to be so close to him, and that thought terrified her. This fear was still coursing through her when Shikamaru came to have lunch with her. It didn't help that she was exhausted from making too many shadow clones, and with each day that the village treated her with kindness, she found herself tensing further, waiting for it all to fall away and the violence to return. As the two sat beside the river eating their lunch, all Naruto could think about was how easily Shikamaru was going to replace her. She wondered if the woman he wanted was more like Sakura instead of her. She doubted it was Sakura herself, and Naruto knew she wouldn't handle it at all if it was her. Would anything about the woman remind him of Naruto? Or would he choose to forget everything that they had shared? The thought of moments that she held so dear being turned into nothing caused a hollow feeling to embed itself into her chest. It was this thought and feeling that made Naruto kiss Shikamaru hard, pushing him onto the grass. Part of her knew that she should stop, but she couldn't talk sense into herself. All she could imagine was searing her mark on him, making it impossible for him to forget her. That she could linger with him the way he would always stay with her. Naruto could feel Shikamaru responding to her touch, and yet, he pushed her away, asking her if this was really what she wanted. His rejection stung, but it was not as painful as the thought that rang through her mind at Shikamaru's question. "I just want you." It was with this one thought that she realized she had handed Shikamaru control over her. He could do more damage to her than Haruma ever could have. It felt as though, with that thought, she had tied a noose around her neck. An image of Waka hanging, the rope pinching into his neck as her heart dropped into her stomach. She ran, trying to distance herself from her biggest threat. For some reason she ran back to the Nara estate, even though this would be the easiest place for Shikamaru to find her. Before she could think of a new place to go, Hiro walked up to her, his hands in his pockets and his shoulders slumped. He scanned Naruto's appearance, his mouth pulling down at both corners. "What happened, Naruto?" "It's nothing," Hiro grunted. "It doesn't look like nothing. But if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. Honestly, I'm about to make your day worse." "How?" Naruto breathed in shock. The Nara looked away from her before whispering his answer in a volume that the blonde was just able to hear. "Because I have orders to find a way to destroy you, and I have." Naruto sat down on the porch, leaning forward and putting her head in her hands. "Better you than him," she muttered, not caring if Hiro heard her. "Are you going to stop him?" The Ninetales growled in her head. "Why bother?" Naruto thought back. "Of course, I forgot. This is what you wanted all along. Why commit suicide when you can get someone to kill you? You haven't changed, even though you promised that you had." "I never actually promised. I just said that I was going to use the iron in my blood to fight to get the village to respect me. I kept that promise." "You're pathetic."